On June 25th, 1503, the admiral of the ocean sea and his ships were forced to beach on the island now known as Jamaica. The native peoples welcomed them, providing food and shelter. As the days dragged into weeks and finally months, tensions mounted and the crew mutinied. They robbed and murdered some of the locals, who themselves had grown weary of supplying food in exchange for little trinkets. With famine now threatening, the admiral formulated a desperate, albeit ingenious plan. He informed the local chief that his Christian God was very angry with his people for no longer supplying him and his men with food. 3 nights hence, he would all but obliterate the rising full moon, making it appear inflamed with wrath. This wrath would signify the evils that would soon be inflicted upon all of them. On the appointed evening, as the sun set in the west and the moon started emerging from the eastern horizon, it was plainly obvious to all that something was terribly wrong. By the time the moon appeared in full view, a small but noticeable scallop had been removed from its lower edge. And just over an hour later, as evening twilight ended and full darkness descended, the moon exhibited an eerily inflamed and bloody appearance. In place of a normally brilliant late winter moon, now hung a dim red ball in the eastern sky. The locals were terrified at this sight, and they promised that they would happily cooperate if only he would intercede with his God on their behalf and restore the moon back to its normal self. The admiral promised he would counsel with God, but only in private. Just moments before the end of the total phase, the admiral reappeared, announcing to the locals that his God had pardoned them and would now allow the moon to gradually return. At that moment, true to his word, the moon slowly began to reappear. And so, the admiral of the ocean sea, a man we know as Christopher Columbus, and his men were well supplied and well fed until they were finally rescued on June 29th, 1504. At least that's the story I was told. So what do eclipses really look like? Why are they so rare? And why are they so frightening? We'll learn more about eclipses next. Stay tuned. What Columbus saw was due to the fact that the sun and the moon appear to be the same size in the sky, about 1/2 of a degree. No other planetary system can boast this size similarity, so our eclipses are unique to Earth. Eclipses occur in 2 types, solar and lunar. When we look at the geometry of the Earth-Moon-Sun system, we see that they align twice every month. Notice in this image that the moon orbits around the Earth in a counterclockwise direction as viewed from above, the same direction that the Earth rotates. If we recall in our discussion about phases, we discussed how this configuration results in a full moon. This is because we see the fully illuminated half of the moon facing the Earth. With moon phases, there were no shadows involved. However, the Earth does occasionally cast a shadow on the moon. We can see from this picture that there are 2 main areas in a shadow: the darker, smaller umbra and the larger, brighter penumbra. We'll come back to this. Let's look more closely at the umbra and penumbra. We can do an experiment to observe how the shadows of an object appear. Here's the setup that will be used. This image shows the result. The umbra is very dark and is surrounded very vividly by the penumbra. What would this look like in our eclipse scenario? There are 3 different kinds of lunar eclipses: penumbral, partial, and total. Let's discuss the penumbral eclipse first. This eclipse type occurs when the moon passes only through the Earth's penumbra. In these images, you can see a normal moon appearance on the left and a mid-eclipse view on the right. Mid-eclipse is the darkest part of the eclipse. As you can see, the appearance of the moon hardly changes. You might not even realize that a penumbral eclipse is in progress. Our next eclipse type is the partial eclipse. This occurs when only part of the moon passes through the darker umbra. Here we see the path of the moon through a lunar eclipse that occurred in 2024. Only a very small part of the moon actually passed through the umbra. Here we see three different images as the moon is passing from the penumbra into the umbra. The darkness is much more pronounced due to the umbra. The third type of lunar eclipse, and the most dramatic, is the total lunar eclipse. This occurs when the moon passes entirely through the umbra. A total eclipse produces a striking effect. The moon turns a deep red. This appearance has been recorded throughout history and is often referred to as a blood moon. Christopher Columbus observed a blood moon in the introduction to this mini-lecture. As the moon is completely in the umbra, the eclipse is very hard not to notice. Why is the moon red during a total eclipse? The light that we see from the moon is actually reflected sunlight. During a lunar eclipse, the light has passed through the Earth's atmosphere. When this happens, the blue light is scattered, and the longer wavelength red light is what is being reflected back. It's the same reason the setting sun is reddened. It is important to restate that the lunar eclipse can only occur at a full moon phase. So why then doesn't a lunar eclipse happen every month? We'll come back to that shortly. The second type of eclipse is the solar eclipse. There are three kinds: partial, annular, and total. A solar eclipse occurs when the moon passes between the sun and the earth. Recall our geometry from the phases discussion. As you probably have guessed, a solar eclipse occurs during a new moon. A partial solar eclipse occurs when the Earth passes through the moon's penumbra. Notice from the image that the penumbra doesn't cover the entire face of the Earth. Not everywhere on Earth, as a result, can see a solar eclipse. A total solar eclipse occurs when the Earth is in the umbra of the moon. As with the partial eclipse, only a small part of the Earth is able to see a total solar eclipse. That's why total solar eclipses are so rare and garner so much attention. You can see in this image the moon's umbra as it passes over the Earth. The shadow is only about 270 kilometers in diameter. Due to this, seeing a total eclipse is very rare. Here's an animation of an eclipse as viewed from space. In this video, we see a time-lapse of what the location inside the path of the umbra sees. A striking thing to notice is that the brightness of the sky dims only very slightly and very gradually until the last moments before and immediately after the total solar eclipse. The last of the eclipse type is known as an annular eclipse. The annular eclipse is often referred to as the ring of fire. The word annular is from the Latin word annulus, which means ring. Here you see the annular eclipse as compared to a total eclipse. How can the annular eclipse happen? the moon's orbit around the Earth is slightly elliptical. By the way, so is the Earth's orbit around the sun, but we'll ignore that for the time being. As a result, the apparent sizes of the moon and sun differ slightly over time. In this diagram, we see the difference between the perigee, or the closest the moon gets to the Earth, and the apogee, the most distant point in the moon's orbit. We also see how the apparent size changes at each point in the orbit. The moon's size varies approximately 13% from its min size at apogee to its max size at perigee. This change in size means that sometimes the moon appears smaller than the sun in the sky during an eclipse. As a result, we see what's referred to as the ring of fire. So if a solar eclipse occurs at new moon and a lunar eclipse occurs at full moon, why don't we see eclipses every month? It's because the moon's orbit is tilted or inclined from the Earth's equator at an angle of 5 degrees. As a result, sometimes the alignment between the sun, moon, and Earth is not favorable for eclipses. As you can see in this picture, the tilt is enough that the shadow cast by the Earth sometimes falls where the moon is not located, or the moon's shadow is not cast on the Earth. So how would this look from a God's eye view? Let's let Bill Nye explain.
Let me ask you this. Why don't we get one every month? An eclipse every month? Because the orbit of the moon is tilted. So once in a while the shadow falls on the moon, but most of the time the shadow misses. And we get a full moon and a new moon every month, no problem. Isn't that wild?
Uh-huh.
It's all because the moon's orbit has a little tilt.
It seems so clear that seeing these well-known objects so significantly altered would frighten all who observed them.
Let's see, and we have an eclipse tonight, by the way, a big lunar.
Lunar eclipse.
Lunar eclipse tonight. Yep. And for people who may not, if it's like cloudy, if it's rainy or something, and you're not able to see the eclipse tonight, here is it's a simulation. This is what the lunar eclipse tonight will look like. Here we go. If you're indoors, you're busy, you're watching TV, see I guess that's the Earth coming between the sun and the moon or something in a shadow, and it rolls right across there like that, and there it goes. Like that. Oddly enough, it makes that noise when you hear it. When you see it, you'll know it.
Ah, Dave, there you are. Come on, we're gonna miss the solar eclipse.
Yeah, I know, but I got this lousy cold and with the moon about to block out the sun, I don't know whether I should be taking NyQuil or DayQuil.
You should try this, Eclipse Quill. It's the coughing, sniffling, sneezing, stuffy nose so you can rest medicine for times when darkness descends briefly due to an eclipse.
That's the most idiotic thing I've ever heard of.
Who cares? It's mostly alcohol anyway. Just drink some and come on.
Aren't you supposed to watch the eclipse through some kind of special instrument? I thought it was just dangerous.
Ah! My eye! Ah!
Take the edge off that. There you go.
I feel better already.
Yeah, but the damage to your retina is permanent.
Eclipse Quill, available in solar and lunar eclipse strength.
How many folks saw the lunar eclipse? Did you see the lunar eclipse?
No, I did not.
Oh, spectacular.
Oh, yeah.
And the lunar eclipse, what that means is the Earth gets between the sun and the moon. Is that what that means? Yeah.
I think so.
And then the Earth casts its shadow on the moon. Yeah, it was lovely. For those
and blocks it out, right?
Exactly, blocks it out. Yeah, and for, I don't know, 10, 12-minute period, it was eerie. It was very strange. So if those of you folks who missed it, we're going to recreate it tonight with our own Tony Mendez and his cue card. So, Paul, here we go. Here we go. You're going to recreate the lunar eclipse. Take it away. This will be pretty good. This is the way it looked. Unbelievable. That's the kind of fun you can have in prison.